Edward Lawrence.
Thanks, Chair Powell, for taking these questions. You laid out the standards to lift off, and back in June of 2020, you said you're not even thinking about raising rates. But I see 7 members seeing liftoff in 2023 and 4 next year. How much debate and how can you characterize that conversation has there been about moving off the lower bound earlier than signaled?
Well, it all depends. We've set out very clear criteria for liftoff, right? Where we've said we want to see labor market conditions that are consistent with our estimates of maximum employment. And that doesn't just mean unemployment, it means a much broader set of criteria. We want inflation at 2% and not on a transitory basis, and we want inflation on track to run moderately above 2% for some. Those are the 3 conditions. Everybody on the committee agrees to that, right? So it comes down to what's your projection for the economy. If you want to, people will have a range of assessments for how good the economy is going to be, and we don't. I would say that we're in a relatively highly uncertain situation. If you look at the uncertainty, people on the committee broadly say that uncertainty about the forecast is very high compared to the normal level. We haven't come out of a pandemic before. We haven't had this kind of fiscal support before, totaling it all up. So you're going to have different perspectives from committee participants about how fast growth will be, how fast the labor market will heal, how fast inflation will move up, and those things are going to dictate where people write down an estimate of liftoff. Of course, this isn't a decision to lift off now. We make that decision then, but it's an estimate based on assumptions about growth, and it's meant to be a tool to generally show the public how our objective function works, how we think about the future. It isn't meant to actually pin down a time when we might or might not lift off. We're not going to make that decision for some time. The chances are that the economy in that time and place will be very different from the one we think it'll be. So I sometimes with the dots, I have to be sure to point out that they're not a committee forecast. You know this, but they're not a committee forecast. It's just compiling these projections, really, of individual people. We think it serves a useful purpose. It's not meant to actually be a promise or even a prediction of when the committee will act. That will be very much dependent on economic outcomes, which are highly uncertain.